here to guide into the world of psychoactive plants, frogs, and fungi. Hello, you beautiful souls, and welcome back to the Integration Station. I'm naturally Ashley, your host, and today I myself am being interviewed by Mohammed, the founder of Aware Alpha and the host of the Aware Alpha podcast. So it's a really fun time. He's gonna pick my brain around all things to do with psychedelics, from microdosing to those macro doses. So you guys are really gonna get it all here in a really fun way. This was such a great time hanging out with this guy. So I really encourage you guys to check him out afterwards as well. But without further ado, I'm just gonna pass it over and allow the interviewing to begin.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
What's going on, everyone? It's Mohammed, the host of Aware Alpha. As you can hear, my voice, there might be a little crack in it because I lost my voice here in the last couple of days. A little bit of too much partying at a show that I was at. Anyways, I'm super excited for today's episode. We're going to talk about some interesting conversations about psychedelics, and it's something that I have been implementing into my day-to-day routine in the last year, from microdosing to even recreationally. I do mushrooms, so I'm super excited to pick her brain. And it's interesting, I literally right before this we jumped on this Zoom, I found out that she lives literally like 15 minutes from where I used to live. So it's like just, the universe was like, you guys got to connect. Okay. So with that being said, her name is Ashley. She's a psychedelic integration host or coach, and she's an author, radio show host, and she probably does a lot of other amazing things, but we're going to stick with that for now.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Mohammed. It's a pleasure.
You're welcome. So one of the first thoughts that comes to my mind is, so how did you get into, becoming a psychedelic integration coach?
Yeah, that is a great question with a bit of a winded answer. But essentially what happened is I started working with psychedelics at a really young age. I hung out with a lot of people a lot older than me, and I moved out on my own very young too. So while I was very young at heart, my soul was older and ready to experience some of these things, especially because in my home at the time and in my life, a lot of the adults that were around me were having issues with alcohol and with pharmaceuticals, and I was just noticing what that route was doing to people's bodies and attitudes and how they would change. And I wanted something different. So when I started hearing that psychedelics come from nature, I was all in. I'm like, that's the route. That's what I want to try. And so I worked with them for many years, from 13, 14 until my 20s. And a lot of it was recreational, but at the same time, I will say that in that time, there was a lot of integration that was happening, a lot of insights that were coming through, a lot of action that I was taking. But there was also something that was out of alignment, and that was the career path that I went on. I spent a lot of my teen years and 20s in the hospitality and tourism industry. And I realized at one point in time, in 2014, actually, that I couldn't continue on that path because I couldn't have alcohol in my life. I was maybe headed towards a path that the adults around me at the time, when I was a child, were on. I started seeing some of those patterns coming up in my life and some of those attitudes and behaviors, and I just wanted nothing to do with it. And I had, I guess, what you would call a spiritual awakening. I was living out in British Columbia at the time, an amazing apartment right on the ocean. And I walked that ocean every single day. And I remember this one specific day, I had my pipe on me and I was walking up to the rocks just to sit down and I guess calm myself. I was working in many jobs at the time, so it was nice to have that time for myself, a bit of that reflection and self-love. And a voice came through telling me pretty much to quit drinking, that I had to go back to, much like you were saying, it's time to go home, right? What the voice was saying is that it's time to go back to the roots of where any trauma started, that I had to face it and that I was ready to face it. So immediately I took action. I sold everything that I had and I booked a flight back home. And I took a year completely off of everything. I didn't really tell my family that I was going back. I knew I had work to do on myself before my friends or my family, before I wanted to reintroduce myself after the years of traveling. Yeah. I wanted to introduce myself as, the healed version of myself, not the troubled person that was detoxing alcohol or that had belly fat or, all these other issues that came along when it comes to just behavior and mindset issues. And so I took the year off. I took a year off of money, a year off of people, and a year off of work. And I just did me. I did a lot of Kundalini yoga. I changed my diet around considerably. And I was working with psychedelics on a regular basis to just help me with those big shifts, while the Kundalini yoga was there to help me through the integration. And the diet mindset work helped me heal my body, essentially. When I decided to make money again, the only skills I really had, there was many. I could have cleaned houses and other things. I was doing some bartering for my rent at the time, because of course you do need to pay rent. And I wasn't, so I did barter some services. I was a little bit working in that time, but I did eventually come up with the idea that I wanted to walk in Terrence and Dennis McKenna's footsteps and go to the Amazon rainforest. So that meant more money. So I did go back to the hospitality and tourism industry. A couple friends of mine opened up different restaurants and things. So that was the time when I did do a reintroduction. I realized quickly that I couldn't do both, be in that environment around all the alcohol, saying, here, take the poison, when really what I wanted to do was say, here, like, you let me hug you and just hold an open container for you to express whatever you need to, so that you can heal instead of numbing it with alcohol. And there was a big misalignment. Also with like caffeine was a big one coming up at that time too, which was something else that I had given up. So I was coming in, I noticed everybody that was working at the restaurants and in the bars, they were all hyped up on caffeine, energy drinks and coffee all day, all night. And I'm like, started bringing in ginseng shots. They were like wild tinctures, and I just get everybody hooked on that. and from there, I did end up saving enough money to go to South America. So I kindly, said thank you to my friends for the opportunity, and I hopped on a plane, and I didn't exactly travel in their footsteps. I definitely forged my own path. Yeah. I had some great experiences down there, traveling barefoot, backpacked 3 different countries, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. Some of those things weren't even on my list. The only thing I knew I wanted to do was go to Colombia. And so everything else was such a bonus. And I met so many amazing people, and so many great opportunities came from that. But what was most important is that I learned how to trust myself again. When you're somebody who has addictive behaviors, to trust yourself is a big feat. And it was one that I really felt I had accomplished in those moments and in that time. When I got back to Canada, I started doing some trip sitting and hosting field trips with another friend of mine. We would take people through the trails and onto the beaches, and we were right by what are the provincial parks. Okay. We weren't in the park, but we were so close, like it was all very private and very beautiful and insightful. And we were working with different medicines at the time too. Mushrooms being my favorite one. Yeah, I've been working with them for about 20 years now. So there's definitely a long-lasting relationship. My thing, as Terence McKenna would say, they're my thing. Yeah. And I ended up realizing just how much I had grown and healed myself, because I conceived a child, and doctors had told me in my 20s, when I was having health problems, when I was in the binge drinking phases, that I would not be able to have children because I had cervical issues and PCOS, which is an ovarian issue. And so when I found out that I was pregnant, I was I guess before any of the fear or the reality set in, I just smiled. I was completely present in the moment, and I just had appreciation for my body and for the limitless potential, and for our body's intelligence to already know how to heal itself as long as we get out of the way. Yeah. And so following that, I guess fears set in. One of the really big ones was that my dad he was incarcerated for LSD. He's passed away now for different issues. But when I was a child, that was one of the traumas in my life was, my dad not being present, and for LSD at that, something that is, they're releasing people from jail for psychedelics now, marijuana specifically, but I know that that's going to come for the other, medicines and entheogens, psychedelics as well in the future. So it is happening. But at that time, it was such a big fear that if I had become a mom, that I could be separated from my child, or that my child would grow up without me, or that I would be locked up in a box and not be able to share with my son, my experiences, my life. I knew that I was his mom for a reason, and that being a mom was a gift because of the work that I had done and because of my alternative lifestyle, and that he obviously has a purpose where he needs to hear my truth and what was, my way of living and my way of being. There's a reason why I was his mom, or to be his mom. So I quit the psychedelic thing, and I went for, I moved to Dundas, Ontario, actually. I don't know if you know that area, but it's beautiful. It's the waterfall capital of the world. There are more waterfalls there than anywhere in the world. And it was there was a lot of plant-based restaurants there. Also, there were very health-conscious community, an art school that I would go to, like pregnant out to here. I just walk in for the free classes, get my creative flows going. And it was wonderful. It was a wonderful experience, and definitely giving birth was the most psychedelic experience I've ever had. Plus, it never ends. It just continues for year after year. It's ongoing. But I knew I couldn't go back to the psychedelics. There was just too much fear there. So I went to school for nutrition, and then nutrition turned into hormone health, and then hormone health turned into my school helping me publish my first book, which was titled Be the Change, which was all about the integration using the seasons, the moon cycles, Mama Nature to change with the seasons. I knew that whatever changes I wanted to make in my life, whatever changes I hadn't made in my life, that the best mentor I had was Mama Nature, because she changes so beautifully, so naturally. So I really based that book around that. And the thing is, like, you know, no matter what certifications I got, you know, I was collecting them like they were Pokemon or something. And I'm like, Reiki, herbology, permaculture, this, that, everything. But the only thing I wanted to talk about, Muhammad, was psychedelics. The only thing I wanted to talk about was mushrooms, how they healed me, how I loved them, how they were my thing. And so that was it. I got in touch with Dr. Dan Engel. Okay. Actually, I should rewind just a second there. Before I found Dr. Dan Engel, I did this kind of crazy thing, but I needed it to get my mind around it. I knew that I still wanted to talk about psychedelics while I was in school and doing all of these other modalities. So I actually started writing Joe Rogan for about a year. And while I did not talk to him, and I was not like crazy enough to think that the messages would get to him specifically, I did write to his team every single month, just giving them an update. And also the main purpose was holding myself accountable. And so in that process, I was still talking about psychedelics and I was still talking about my passions, but in a safe container with people who actually got it. And I was doing some sales for On It, and one of the doctors for On It supplements, who at the time Joe Rogan was involved with and advertising heavily, was Dr. Dan Engel. And so I connected with him kind of the same way. I was just messaging his assistant for a long time. And then finally got in on these calls with him, and I got him on the phone himself and was just working with him and listening in on his calls when he was doing integration coaching. And I found that that was really my bliss point, because there's this, like in the business world, we call it a niche. But what I saw was that there was something missing out of the retreats. There was something missing. It doesn't matter if it's a psychedelic retreat or a Tony Robbins training or a boot camp or what, that the messages that come through from those times, yeah, there's a lot of excitement, a lot of opening, a lot of understanding. But shortly after, it just goes away. And the only way to hold on to that is by including integration work and different modalities and trying on different hats and seeing what suits you, and really taking action on those messages as they come through. So, you know, if it's self-love and self-care, you need to be taking action in those areas, or those feelings will just fade away. And so in watching Dr. Dan, how he would help people through this process, help them understand not only what the medicine was teaching them, but how to integrate that and make it into lasting changes. You know, information is power, but only if you're using it for transformation. Otherwise, it becomes shelf help and it doesn't go anywhere beyond that. And so I was really blessed, I think, to have such an amazing person to look up to in those ways. And that's really what formed Elemental Growth. I did launch my business in 2017, and so that's about 7 years now that I've just been practicing, and still I'm learning. I learn from every single client I have, from every article that I write, from every medicine that I work with. It's an amazing process, and I'm really grateful that you asked me to share that, and I hope that it inspires somebody else. So thank you.
That's amazing. No, thank you for sharing that with me. That's it's just interesting how long it took you, you know, traveling, backpacking, all the experiences that you went through that finally brought you back home, and not just in the, you know, physical where you are right now, but I mean, like, you know, mentally in your own body, finally coming back to like, this is my thing. Like I get, like, you know, and I gotta, this is my purpose. This is what I gotta do. And you actually stuck with it, right? So that's amazing. Sorry to hear about your your loss there. How old is your little one now?
He's 6.5.
6.5. That's amazing. So my question is, when you call integration, right? Integration coaching, what is that? Like, explain that. What does that look like? You know, what is it exactly you guys are doing with your clients? Besides, let's say, like, a psychedelic sit is with, if I want to have a psychedelic sit with you, it's like, we set up a time, I come, and then we, you feed me some mushrooms, and then in a couple of hours, and you guide that sit, right? Now, what's when does the integration come, or like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so there's about there's many steps in my book Rebirth that came out this year. You'll be able to see all the steps. I align them with the chakras for anybody who's into spirituality in that way, so you can see what the steps are. But basically, you need in 3 steps, we'll keep it basic here. You need your preparation, then there's the experience or the ceremony, and then there's the integration. So the integration comes following the experience. It's when you first start coming to after working with psychedelics, and you get all that euphoria, and you can get your journal out, and you're like, I need to keep all of this information forever. I need to hold on to this feeling. So the integration, what that does is just extend those feelings so that you can make your life ceremony. Because what ceremony is actually doing is just reminding us how to live every day, how to be present, how to set intentions. Intentions are part of that preparation phase. So what I do in my practice is I actually work on all 3 of those levels. Sometimes people come to me and they say, I've been on SSRIs on and off for years, and mainly I'm on them for SADs in the winter. Or someone says, I've been on them for 16 years, or I've been on them for 20 years or 40 years, and I just want off. Well, I can help them through the preparation to start working with the psychedelics. And I do this one-on-one. I do much of my work is one-on-one. However, there are times and certain people that I collaborate with for group. But for this show, we'll just stick with the one-on-one or for this answer. And then for ceremony, I do that sometimes for people, again, one-on-one, though again I have done the group thing as well, and I'm open to looking for those synchronicities, right? It's not something that I'm doing for everybody, or just because somebody asks me or because a group asks. I'm looking for those synchronicities to know that it's right all the way around and in alignment, not forced, that it's just natural and beautiful. And then the integration part. So this could be for somebody, because we're talking about one-on-one here. And so I really do believe that it's not a one-size-fits-all when it comes to coaching or nutrition or anything. It's very important to honor your individuality. Yeah. And so when working with the medicine, individual messages come for people, right? Like, obviously, love is something that comes through for most people in one way or another, but there's specific ways to get to that love, or the specific insights about what love may mean, as specific insights for understanding what that is. For somebody, it may be more mindset work, and so that may be more like affirmations in their coaching sessions, and working with dissecting and building and breaking habits, and dissecting different beliefs and turning fear into faith. This kind of stuff. For somebody else, it may be a lot of trauma. Maybe they had a bad trip. Maybe they remembered past trauma or past life regression. And so when we're working with trauma, I'm really working on turning the pain into something that they can fire a passion inside of them for helping others, and fostering that out. And for others, it's about just honoring the body through nutrition, or for somebody, it may be a freedom and sustainability. For others, maybe they're at that point where they really are ready to be helping other people. And a lot of the time, I think what comes through after people are working with medicines a lot is that they want to start their own business and make it like share mushrooms with everybody. Yeah. So we have set up like special programs for that too. A lot of the questions that I was answering repeatedly for clients, we put together in a nice little package that can help people find the specific people that need their help so that they can help them and shape a type of business or even service that that would be of asset, you know, in this generation at this dynamic time of life right now.
You know, like, I'm very practical, and one of the things that comes to my mind is getting back into this integration. So, you know, let's say you have a one-on-one with a client, the experience is done. Now, for the next 3 to 6 weeks, you know, they're integrating that experience, right? So do you still are in contact with them, or do you just give them a list of, you know, exercises like journal now, meditate now, when this comes up, do this? Like, how do you go about, you know, helping your clients integrate after the experience?
Yes, that is a wonderful question. So I have 2 answers. One of them is when I'm collaborating with retreat leaders who are doing the group thing. Sometimes it is one-on-one too, but most of the time retreat leaders, they're often working on a group a couple times a month, or with the moon cycles, things like that. So in that case, they bring me on to do the integration work. So right after their experience, or the next day following their experience, they bring me in, and I again bring it to like the one-on-one. Even though we're in a group setting, I go one person at a time, and I give them specific recommendations and insights that are kind of intuitively coming through me. I really, you know, I look for those synchronicities, or, you know, I listen. I allow that little voice to be a big one. So I give them what it is that comes through after hearing their stories and their journeys and their inspirations for being there and their journey. And I'll give specific recommendations and insights. The other way that I do it is that when people find me and they've been working with the medicine on their own, or if they did ceremony with me, I am then doing it one-on-one with them, and it's every single week that we do it. And there's, again, 2 ways that people can work with me for psychedelic integration. And one of them is through our membership, and that's where you have access to peer-to-peer support in a group setting on a decentralized platform. And you also get access to other professionals on there too. And then you have a one-on-one coaching call or check-in with me that's 15 minutes, same time, same day each week. The other way is more in-depth coaching. Again, it's weekly. All the same benefits are there, but the coaching sessions are an hour. And those are pretty much the 2 options. I just wanted it to be affordable for everybody, both financially and with their time, because I know time is very valuable.
No, I love that. I love the way you explained that. You know, from my experience, or from what I have studied, that the same benefits that we could get through psychedelics, we could also get through meditation, but it takes, you know, an extensive amount of meditation. Like, you got to do a whole bunch of 10-day silent meditation retreats, spend a lot of time in meditation to get the same results. Let's say 2-3 months of microdosing every 2 days, every 3 days does. What are your thoughts on that? Like, does meditation, you know, almost do the same thing as microdosing if it's done extensively? Like, you know, like I said, you know, a bunch of 10-day silent meditation retreats, and like spending maybe 3 to 4 hours a day meditating, which a lot of people don't have that time. But my question is, like, do you think that you can get the same benefits that come from psychedelics from meditation?
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Who has huge buds? You do. If you shop at BMA Hydroponics, attend one of BMA's educational seminars and learn the secrets of growing, harvesting, processing, and consuming quality cannabis and cannabis products. Learn how to make better extracts, edibles, and medicinal creams at prices you can afford. Visit BMA Hydroponics at 404 Maitland Drive, Belleville, or call 613-967-9888.
The only way to go.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Pace Radio is the people advocating cannabis education radio network.
At Legacy 420, we believe in being different.
Experience the difference of quality control.
Our labs provide tested formulations for all of our products.
Experience the difference in trust.
Our customers can trust that we are following up-to-date COVID precautions for their safety.
Experience the difference in accessibility.
We're open 7 days a week. Please visit our website, legacy420.com, or contact us for curbside pickup as well as nationwide mail order shipping.
Legacy 420 values overall wellness.
Come and experience the difference of Legacy 420.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch, yes, watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net. You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to give you a couple examples of why we know that this works. Okay. So one of them was Ram Dass. He was part of Harvard Psychedelic Club, and he went for a trip to India, and he met a guru there, and he gave the guru some LSD. And the guru sat there in meditation. Nothing really fazed him. And Ram Dass said, like, what's going on here? He quit his job at Harvard, which was pretty amazing. If anyone's read the Harvard Psychedelic Club, the stuff that Dr. Andrew Weil was doing, Ram Dass, incredible. But he left that, and he stayed with this guru and learned from him, and he shared many stories. And the reason for this inspiration to make this big life change was because the guru said that he's already been to those realms so many times. He's comfortable there. There was no transition. It's already so familiar. And so it didn't have any effect on him. Whereas it would in very small amounts for most other people on this planet. And another example is Terence McKenna again, in one of his lectures where he was talking about being your own guru. Because we need to trust our own direct experience over anything else. And another thing that he said in that lecture that really stuck with me was that while meditation can be very valuable, there's just not enough time for the collective to get to that point. You know, this world would be very different if we could all just meditate and be in that zone or experience that zone. But as you're mentioning here, it's very difficult and it takes a lot of time. And so Terence McKenna was really adamant that psychedelics were the gateway, because what you can do in, you know, years of studying meditation and practicing and hours upon hours of implementing this practice into your life over years, it would take too long to make a difference in the collective. In this, we need to do this now. Like, this is really important that more people get to these states of consciousness now. And once you work with psychedelics, which really only takes 4 to 6 hours, depending on what you're working with. I mean, even if you're working with, some of them really only take like less than an hour, DMT and some of the frog medicines, so you can get to that state of meditation really, really quick. And once you've been there once and you know what that realm is, then you can get back there again. Then meditation is easier to step into, then you can close your eyes and find your breath, because it's a remembering. It's easier than trying to manifest something that you haven't even seen, right? If you haven't seen it, if your mind's eye can't visualize it, then it's not going to be there. But if you've experienced it and you've had that direct experience, then you can like zoom back as you desire through these other tools. So meditation is an amazing integration tool.
Okay, I love that. Great answer. And I asked that because myself, I did psychedelics recreationally in high school and all those. And only in about 4 years ago, I went to a 10-day silent meditation retreat. And that was like the beginning of my healing journey, one we could say. And after that, I was meditating like 3-4 hours a day, every day, going through a lot of, healing a lot of childhood trauma that I had. I was born in Afghanistan, went through crazy rough times as a child. So I was just kind of, meditation just opened up all that, and I'm just now doing all the ego work and shadow work and all these things, and getting to know myself, my inner child, on a deeper level. And only this year I met one of my good friends, and she does, a lot of sits, and she works with a lot of clients. Like psychedelics is also earthing. And then, so I started to microdose, and because I felt like I already had these tools, meditation, journaling, and breathing, I already had these tools now, and I felt much more comfortable getting into psychedelics. So where I wonder it would have been if I had got into microdosing, let's say, prior to going into the meditation retreats and spending 10 days in silence. Like, I wonder how that would have been, right? But I'm glad that you answered that question, because it was good to hear from somebody that's been in the game much longer than myself. So I'm glad to hear that. And also the Ram Dass story, I know exactly. Yeah, he's sitting with his guru, and then just changes everything. He's like, what is going on? Like, he gives him even more, and he's like, he's not even tripping. Like, what's happening, right? And that's why he decides to just stay in the mountains, and ends up, that man ends up being his lifelong guru, right? But so the question that comes to my mind, and like, I don't really have a lot, I don't ever write anything when I do podcasts, whatever comes to my heart. And I love how you just mentioned that as well prior to that question, where when you work one-on-one with people, you give them what your intuition what comes to you. But what really caught my attention was that you listen to their story first, and then you let your intuition. So it's very accurate, because you just kind of you understand what their story is, like you hear it, and then you let your intuition, that inner voice, speak whatever message that comes, which is very, I feel like it's private, in a way, because if you didn't hear their stories and you just sat there and you're like, this is for you, it would be almost like, but what do you know about this person, right? Like, so I like that you mentioned that. So now, microdosing, right? From my experience, I feel like microdosing just made me more happier. And not that I wasn't happier already, but it almost it made me realize the power is in my own hands. That's what happened with microdosing. I started to do microdosing every other day in January this year. And I did it probably for 2-3 months. And that's what really happened. I started to just realize that I'm in control of this more than I think. There's a lot of times, I feel lonely, insecure, lost. I'm not good at all these emotions that we feel. And what microdosing did for me was that I just started to realize that it's okay. These emotions are all normal, but I don't have to be these emotions. I can just let them come through me, express them. And then I can get back to myself, my whole self, which is, I'm full of love. I have a big appreciation for life. I have this deep curiosity for learning, and just, that's what happened for me, right? I want to hear from you, what's happening when somebody starts microdosing and these feelings come? And also, what, from your experience, what other experiences people feel or get to when they're microdosing?
Yeah. Oh, this is such a big thing today, because there are a lot of people out there that are starting to microdose, and it's a great integration tool too after a big experience. Like if you're doing the heroic doses or something big like ayahuasca or Campbell, microdosing and working with mushrooms in small doses can be really helpful. And I've even heard that ayahuasca and LSD are being used in microdoses. I've personally been microdosing in this last year with both Amanita muscaria and DMT, NN-DMT in microdoses myself to get a better understanding across the spectrum. But I think one of the biggest things is that it's like volunteering yourself to feel it and free it. You don't have to hold on to it. It's another great thing that needs to be discussed here is that when you're working with the big doses, you're taken for a ride. You're taken for a trip. You're on that road trip.
Yeah.
There's you're going to another dimension. You're out of body, or up in those higher chakras. Having a different experience. And when you're microdosing, you're very much a participant in the journey. There's a guide there on your side for the wild ride. You know, not taking you for a ride. You guys are symbiotic, working together. You know, even though I'm looking at my son's drawing of Spider-Man, like in behind the camera here. So it's reminding me of like Venom and Spider-Man. Yeah. You know, the symbiote or bios. It's not exactly like that, but kind of maybe. Like if mushrooms are this alien life form here trying to utilize humans as a vessel, then, you know, it very much could be like that. But I do feel when microdosing, like aside from this fantasy land I just brought you to, you know, you really are just this active participant with this partner going through your day. And, you know, it's especially if you're setting intentions around like releasing traumas and releasing emotions or finding answers for, you know, where you want to go in life or finding answers to life's questions, you know, there is a guide for you. And it does make it a little more gentle and also helps you walk through life with a little more ease because it's not all on you. So you don't have to go through everything. It's like when you're doing the same job every single day, and then one day somebody comes and just helps you. And you're just grateful. Yeah. You know, I think that's where a lot of that good feeling comes from, is that, wow, there is assistance out there.
Yeah. You said the participant, meaning the microdose, right?
Yes.
Okay. Another question. Roughly, like the heroic dose that you mentioned, how many grams would you consider is it an heroic dose?
5 grams and beyond. So if you're doing 5 grams is Terence McKenna's heroic dose, and that's 5 grams of dried psilocybin mushrooms. When you're doing over that, which some people do, we would call that the hero's journey.
Okay. And that
you would go on that journey a few times on those really large doses.
And roughly how long does like a heroic journey last? Like, let's say if you did 4, 5, 6 grams, like does it still last 4 or 5 hours, or does it last longer?
About 6 hours, yeah.
6 hours.
Between 4 and 6 hours.
Okay. And I'm curious to know more about it because I've heard stories, 1 or 2 of my like bestest friends, one of them actually ended up becoming a millionaire from the messages that came to him when he was doing these heroic journeys, and he would do it just with himself and his 2 dogs. So I'm curious, first of all, I'm assuming that you would suggest to do something like that with a guide, right? And not just do it with yourself. Or you could say, no, just do it with yourself, go in the forest is the guide. What's happening in those moments? Like maybe on a practical level, from, you know, an intellectual level, like take me, you know, just so from your knowledge of like what's actually happening when somebody does like a dose of 5-6 grams, and what does it look like? Like, cause I'm actually very curious from somebody that is probably like wants to do it, but at the same time to be super like real, it's like there's like a fear in me. Like, it's like, damn, like am I ready for something like that, right? So I'm curious to hear more on that.
Yeah. You know, it's really common for fears to be around this, and I've definitely had them. It still comes up, even though I've been working with mushrooms for decades now. You know, the fear still comes up because this is not some party thing. It's work. Yeah. And you're going through a change. You know, even though if you think about it like a butterfly, you know, or the caterpillar to the butterfly, you know, that transition from caterpillar to butterfly, that's not pleasant. No. But it's always exciting to know that the butterfly is at the end of the experience. So the fear really comes from that mystery of the bridge in between. You know, what's that catalyst part gonna be like? And so there is a lot of fear around this. My advice would be to feel the fear and do it anyway. Like, what really happens is, you know, how we're talking a lot about integration work, integrating modalities and following the experience. What large doses do, even the small microdoses do it too, but the small microdoses do it slowly over time, whereas a big dose can do many lifetimes in a short amount of time. But essentially you're integrating life. So I'll give you some examples here. You know, sometimes you may be integrating, you know, a lot of the traumas that are on this planet. For example, I was doing a job. It was a business boot camp. So for 3 days, I was training these 50 women to start their businesses, and it was all female founders, beautiful souls. The youngest girl of them all, she stood up and gave a speech about being epileptic and that she wasn't sure that she had the courage to ever talk in a public forum because it might cause too much stress and cause seizures. And my mind also remembered my best friend being epileptic and growing up, and so I was putting myself in her mindset. And I had interviewed somebody else on seizures, and so when I took my heroic dose, I felt the seizures of all of those people, and I felt the pain of the collective and the health issues that come, and I felt I even saw, I'll say, like I saw and I felt in this strange way what hell was and could be. And then I was humbled by the mushrooms, and I remembered that I had consumed them. And I started to laugh because I was like, I consumed the mushrooms, but here they are consuming me. And once I laughed, it released all the tension. And I was able to not only escape the hell that I was experiencing, the same hell that a lot of people on this planet experience, but I was able to zoom through all of that with laughter, and it just burst out of me. And then next thing you know, I was in heaven. And the rest of the experience was just laughter. I had a trip sitter that day that was in another room, and they said that they've known me for so many years, probably 15 to 20 years, and said that they've never heard me laugh like that before. But I was so on cloud nine once I made it through that. And I think that's what it is, right? Is that in our life, our regular life outside of psychedelics, we experience hell and heaven. If you're a parent, chances are you're experiencing hell and heaven in the same moment. Okay? And for most people out there, we're experiencing that throughout our life, the ups and the downs. It really is a yin-yang, this life, and our job is to ride that wave in the middle. Because in the darkness, there's always light, and in light, there's always darkness. But if we're riding that wave, and what the psychedelics are doing is that they're helping us tune in with that flow so that we can navigate through those times maybe with some more gratitude and with some more understanding and with the collective that is also experiencing that. So it takes some of the pressure off because there's a remembering that we're not alone. You know, it's like when you fast and you start tuning in to all the other people who fasted and who have starved and who may be starving in that moment, and it just helps you be stronger and stay committed to your fast till the end. It's very much the same kind of spiritual experience as that, you know, but then you get your berries and, you know, and then that's heaven.
What is it like on a practical level? When I say practical, I mean, like, what does it look like in those 6 hours? Like, it could be different for anyone, but I'm curious, like, are you sleeping? Like, not sleep, but like, are your eyes closed and you're laying down? Are you like, going like, oh my God, like this is happening? Like, what does it look like in a physical, practical level, would you say, when you're going through this heroic journey of, let's say, 5-6 grams?
Yeah, so again,
sorry to cut you off. In my head, I just wonder, I'm like, what does it look like? Am I going like, oh my God, this stuff isn't like, you know, or are you just sitting there breathing in and out? You have these tools, you're aware that you're in your, you know, you're going through this experience. I guess it depends also in every individual and how aware they are. But yeah, I'm curious, like, what does it look like from your experience?
Yeah, it definitely depends on the individual, and it depends on the setting as well. You know, so if you are by yourself, may be different than if you're with other people, because other people are going to influence that experience, unless the trip sitter is far enough away that you still have your own personal experience. One of the retreat leaders that I collaborate with, she gets a big Airbnb, and each individual client gets their own bedrooms, and they get set up with music and a journal and tissues for, you know, if they're doing an emotional purge or anything. You know, for me, you know, on the shamanic path, most of my experiences, I was alone, especially in my dark night of the soul when I was getting sober and having those, you know, dealing with a lot of that past trauma. I was very much on my own there. What Terence McKenna always recommended was to take 5 grams of dried psilocybin in complete darkness, all by yourself. Myself, the only time I felt compelled to do that was in a bad trip. In a bad trip, I do want all the lights out, and I do want to be on my bed, and I do want the comforts of a blanket, and I do want to be alone and just feel it and free it. I want to make it through that. Most of the time, most of my trips, what I've found is that yoga is my greatest asset and my greatest tool. So a lot of the time, even if I'm on these trips for, you know, 4 to 6 hours, I'm on my yoga mat, and I have a journal close to me. So I'll do some yoga, move through the discomfort, because sometimes you may feel a little bit nauseous, depending again on what the intention was and how you've taken your dose, you know, and how your body is prepared for it. So it helps you, yoga will help you move through all that discomfort. For me anyway, that's been my experience. And so yoga is my asset, and I always have my yoga mat out. And then I will oftentimes go outside into nature. And another thing that I do is journaling. And sometimes if I'm not out in nature, like if it's really cold weather, like here in Canada when we get winters, if I'm called to do a heroic dose and the weather's not nice out there, or like really rainy or whatever, I'll just kind of walk laps around my house. And I always feel like I turn into like maybe Nikola Tesla, or you know, like I go for the men more than the women. There must be like more testosterone in me or something. Another one is Albert Einstein, and I'll like pretend I got a beard or something, and I'm like pondering. I'm like, I'm gonna be the greatest that there is, you know. But I wait for those insights to come, and I just walk, and I've got my journal, and I do often have teas. Sometimes because I have a really nice apothecary and I have access to many different things, sometimes the insights that come through when I'm stroking my invisible beard is that, you know, there's a special medicine or blend that I need to make to help nourish my body or to help enhance the experience. So that's another thing, is that tea is great. If you're having, you know, about to go into something that's maybe uncomfortable, or you can't beat the uncomfortable feeling, there's a couple different things that might be able to help. One of them for me, which I learned from Terence McKenna, was to roll some cannabis and smoke that, and you'll come back. Another one that's worked with people that I know that have had these experiences or worked with really high doses and need to ground because they're like way gone, was rapé. which is a tobacco snuff. And there's many different ways that you can work with rapé, many different blends. But that's another one too. I hope this answers your question. I'm not sure if I actually did.
No, it did. And another question came. I actually have a couple questions. I feel like I have so many. First of all, what would you consider a bad trip?
Yeah. So a bad trip is those things that feel uncomfortable. So a bad trip may be that your body feels really uncomfortable and maybe you feel like you're dying. The truth is, pardon?
You feel helpless, right?
Helpless or like completely out of control. Like some people feel like they're dying, and because there's parts of you that are. Yeah. Parts that don't need to be there anymore, parts you've outgrown, like going from the caterpillar. You no longer are you the caterpillar. And that is very uncomfortable, that transition. And when you're going through the transition of surrendering to the mushrooms, it's very uncomfortable, but some people have a hard time surrendering. And if you don't surrender, that can easily turn into a bad trip. Like, for example, when I was talking about tapping into the epilepsy that's happening in the world, that was very much a bad trip. I thought that I was dying. I thought for sure I was shaking on the bed and I wasn't going to wake up. But as soon as I laughed, that was the surrender. There was this part of me that found it very comical that they had consumed me when in reality I took them. And it just brought so much. It relieved everything, like somatic shaking. That's what laughter is like a type of somatic shaking. And so I was able to move through that bad trip. But that was the bad trip, was that part where I felt like I was in hell, where I was seeing hell. And this has happened other times where I've fully seen demons. Sometimes I see them outside of me, and I've even seen them working with different medicines where they're coming out of me and facing me. And so those are bad trips. Feeling the sick feeling like you're gonna die, that's a bad trip. Revisiting old traumas, or the worst, seeing the trauma that you've inflicted on yourself because of ego or whatever else, that is also a very bad trip. And in my years, between my stories and experiences and those that come to me for assistance, this can show up in many different forms. But the reality is that it's all a blessing. It's all something to be grateful for. If your body is really uncomfortable through that experience, there might be something going on in the body that you need to address. And that's a blessing because you know the truth, right? If you're experiencing a lot of past traumas and past pain, guess what? That's a blessing because now you're in a safe container to release it. And you realize for the first time that you are not your past, but the person who's grown through that. And, if you're having those ego deaths, which I don't necessarily believe in ego death. I don't believe in killing off a part of ourselves. I believe very much about aligning our soul with our ego so that our soul becomes the louder voice, but the ego is our helper along the journey, because the ego does have purpose. But for people who are working through ego and shadow work, that it can be very uncomfortable and be a bad trip to face the fact that you're the one hurting yourself, or that you're the one in your way, or even worse, that you've hurt somebody else or been hurting somebody else. But again, this is a blessing because now you get to be the person who's grown through what you've gone through during the experience. And one of the blessings, even more so, of these bad trips is that you're getting all of these insights in 4 to 6 hours. You're ending all of that hell. That hell ends the moment the ceremony ends, and then you're a different person. You're not going to go revisit that hell on purpose, So, but if you didn't take the psychedelics and you didn't face those things and you didn't feel those things, they would be showing up in your life over and over and over and over again, like the autobiography in 5 chapters. It's a beautiful autobiography. It's not a book or anything. It's a 1-page poem. So I encourage you guys, if you're repeating patterns in your life, to go look it up. It's called The Autobiography in 5 Chapters. And essentially what it is that you step out your door and you're about to go for a walk and you fall in a hole. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in a hole. Like, what am I going to do? How do I get out of here? And it's like pure panic. You don't know what to do. But eventually you find your way out. Day 2, you walk out the front door. You're about to go for a walk, all excited. But you know there's a hole there. So you try to walk around it. But you fall in again. Oh no. Like, this sucks. Like, you should have known better. But do you know what? You've been here before, so you know how to get yourself out.
Yeah.
Day 3, you're ready to go on this walk, open the door, you try to walk around the hole, you fall in again. This time it's a pity party. You know, and sometimes people don't want to leave these pity parties. Other times they want to invite all their friends to these pity parties.
Yeah.
In this story, you're in that pity party by yourself. And you are like, why me? Why does this keep happening to me? This sucks. I've been here before. Why did this happen? Eventually, you gain the strength to pull yourself out. Sometimes this part takes people a long time. And so eventually you get out of the hole. Chapter 4, you go for a walk and you walk around the hole. The chapter 5, you walk down a different street. So, you know, this is what happens in life. This is life. But if you can do all of that in 4 to 6 hours, guess how much time you saved yourself?
Yeah.
Guess how much you're opening yourself up to more heaven in your life? You know, guess how much extra time you have to build out on your dreams now that you've dealt with that in a 4 to 6 hour period. You don't want that to be your autobiography of life. You want to do that in a psychedelic experience.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Growing your own cannabis is easier than you think. Whether you're growing for recreational or medical purposes, BMA Hydroponics has everything you need to succeed. From the standard 4-plant recreational systems to the latest cutting-edge hydroponic equipment, BMA can customize your package and do it at discount prices. Visit BMA Hydroponics at 404 Maitland Drive in Belleville and ask us for a free estimate. Or call 613-967-9888 and we will give you an estimate over the phone.
The only way to go.
In February of 2022, the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club and Ted Smith were fined $6.5 million. This for helping 8,500 patients with access to medical cannabis. In our interview with Ted, he spoke to us about how people can donate to help in an upcoming court challenge. And here is part of that interview. From what I've seen lately, I believe that you've got something that you're trying to do as far as fundraising to deal with this next court challenge.
For now, people can write checks directly to Jack Lloyd Law Corporation or send e-transfers to savethebcbc@gmail.com. I guess those are the 2 easiest ways for people to help right now.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
A doctor's job is to relieve your pains. And when it comes to growing cannabis, the biggest pain is trimming. Let Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions take the pain away. Whether you're a home grower or a commercial operation, we have the cure. From 4 plants to 400 plants, garden size doesn't matter. Dr. Buck Cannabis Trimming Solutions comes to you with years of experience and professional discreet service. It's simple. We trim your weed and we do a damn good job. Visit drbuckcts.com to book your trimming.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net.
At Legacy 420, we believe in being different.
Experience the difference of quality control.
Our labs provide tested formulations for all of our products.
Experience the difference in trust.
Our customers can trust that we are following up-to-date COVID precautions for their safety.
Experience the difference in accessibility.
We're open 7 days a week. Please visit our website, legacy420.com, or contact us for curbside pickup as well as nationwide mail order shipping.
Legacy 420 values overall wellness.
Come and experience the difference of Legacy 420.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Because it's done in 4 to 6 hours.
Yes, I love that. And I think personally, I feel like, just from my own experience, that sometimes bad trips happen because, let's say like myself, I like to be in control, always in control, always in control. But when I'm doing, let's say if I do 4 or 5 grams, I have to surround her and admit that I'm not going to be in control. And like, does that make sense? Like I can't control this next 5-6 hours. Like I gotta just let it be. I gotta let the message, the experience, the guide, everything, and let that take me on this journey instead of. And then the moment it hits me, all of a sudden I'm not in control. I can't function like normally, and all of a sudden that starts to cause a bad trip because you start to trip out in a bad way. So another question that I have is that, so let's say people, we all face trauma, but let's say that you have, like, somebody has a lot of trauma. Let's just, I'll just focus on me right now. Like, I'm dealing with a lot of trauma, and dealing sounds weird, like as if like I'm living a miserable life right now, but I'm healing through a lot of childhood trauma. And I understand right now, I'm actually having a sit with my best friend tomorrow, but she's guiding me through a sit, listeners, you guys are just getting everything today. So the thing is that, like, I'm working through some childhood traumas right now. You know what? I've only shared this on the podcast once, but I'm just going to share it. I'm going to actually share exactly what I'm working through right now. So I found out like 3 to 6 months ago that when I was, a little kid between ages, I grew up in Afghanistan, that I wasn't circumcised like the moment I was born. What happened was, when I was like 3 to 4, 5 years old, my family, they find out another kid in the town in the village is sick, got like cancer, and that kid supposedly wasn't circumcised. So my mom gets super worried and is like, we gotta circumcise Muhammad. But like, we live in a village in Afghanistan, there's no anesthesia, nothing like that. Make story short, literally my cousins, my dad, the village elders, they held me down while the so-called doctor literally circumcised me with scissors. So what happened to me was literally like, I didn't even remember the experience. The only thing I remember from the experience was that I remember looking down and everyone's looking at me and I'm smiling. But that's after they had given me the pills. My sister, my brother, and like they've shared me, like, no, like what happened to you that day? Like, you were screaming. You were screaming so much that you passed out. My little sister is actually like, I ran away from the house and I could hear you 3 blocks down, like screaming, going through this experience, right? Anyways, to make it short and sweet, I find out like 3 months ago is when I hear about this experience. And as I'm, healing last few years, even other interesting experiences that I've gone through, I'm working through that right now, right? The memory is starting to come to me. I've had moments where I cry, and it's that part of me, and I just let it out and let it express, feel it, free it, what you were mentioning, right? So, making story short, sweet, I'm working through this right now, right? So, isn't it accurate to assume that if I'm gonna go on let's say I do a 4 or 5 grams of heroic journey, like it's gonna be probably a so-called bad trip, but there's no such thing as bad trip. I don't want to say it like it's a bad thing, but like it's gonna be an intense trip because I'm obviously working through this part where I'm processing that experience and going through that experience. And like, pretty much what I'm trying to say is that, like, if you're dealing with a lot of trauma and you're like, I'm gonna do like 4 or 5 grams to find myself, you're gonna end up, this stuff is gonna come up. Like, you can't bypass things, right? Like, if you're dealing with a lot of stuff and you do psychedelics on 4 or 5 grams, you're gonna end up feeling all this stuff. Like, you're not gonna bypass this and be somewhere else, like finding your career or finding the job of your dreams, or intuition giving you the inner voice, or the whatever, like giving you an answer of what you should do with your life. Is that's not gonna happen. Like, what's gonna happen is, like, you're gonna end up feeling what you're supposed to feel and heal and all this stuff like that. Does that make sense, what I shared?
Yeah, and one thing that I want to mention first of all is the Toltec Path to Freedom includes, the lesson to not make assumptions. And I understand that maybe some of these assumptions that you're making right now are based on fear of the fact that some repressed memories might come up. And if you've experienced, you know, if your family's telling you that you screamed, and, you know, that's got to be terrifying to know that not only did you scream that loud that you scared your sister, but you screamed that loud, and that exists inside of you, and that these memories are somewhere there, you know, to the pain to the point, and fear to the point of passing out. You know, repressed memories do come up. It's a blessing also, but let's not make the assumption that that's what's going to happen, because what could happen is that maybe you get understanding of your mom's fears. Maybe it's self-love for, you know, the fact that you were strong enough to make it through that you found these mechanisms inside of yourself to turn off and surrender. You know, your type of surrender was to pass out. What I would recommend to you, because of your tendency to want to control things, would be to get out on the yoga mat, because then you can control your body. There's something you're in control of, and when you're moving your body too, you're also releasing, right? So it may help you in that way. And it can be very meditative, which is a realm that you're really familiar with. And yeah, that would definitely be my recommendation. Like, none of this stuff is easy, but I don't want you to assume that you're just going to go into these memories. The chances are that you may go into memory regression, or like bringing back up these memories, if you didn't know. But the truth is, you do know, and you're already doing the healing work. And now I don't want to assume or guess or put it out there, but from my experience, I think you'll actually be okay and get more healing out of it, and that it's not actually what you expect. It's good to feel fear, because then you're working through the stuff consciously, right? But still do the thing anyway, and allow it to bring up what it needs to. It may not be anything around this trauma. Maybe it is. Maybe it's about healing it. Maybe you do have to experience it again. I don't know. You don't know. The mushrooms won't know until you take them.
Exactly. What I love the most about what you just shared was that you were able to pick, because I wasn't able to myself, and I feel like I'm a very analytic and aware person, but it's a journey. I'm working on becoming even more aware that there was assumptions there, you know, that I have these assumptions that damn, if I'm going through all the stuff and I do this, like, I'm definitely going to be feeling this stuff come up again. I'm going to relive these memories again, right? And it's also, I'm also planning to do ayahuasca in 2023. Actually in Colombia, one of my good friends, he hosts and facilitates a lot of these ceremonies. So that's definitely something that I'm looking for as well. But no, what I love the most about that answer what you just shared was that the assumptions, like, there shouldn't be any assumptions. And I think the question that I practiced when I asked that question, that's what I meant to ask was, is it normal, and it's that repressed memory and repressed emotions that are pushed into the body because of crazy experiences in my past, it's normal that these repressed emotions could come up, which you answered that, yeah, it's normal. It could come up, it could not, you could end up, so it's like, you don't know. But what you got to do is, from my understanding of what I'm listening to you, is that you got to just surrender, trust, set the intention, and go through it, because you do believe that this experience, it's like 4 hours. It's literally cutting short of my therapy work in a way, right? I read this somewhere. It wasn't psychedelics, but it was like ayahuasca does what psychotherapy does in 10 years in 5 days, right? So it's like, I'm not assuming, but I feel like, from my experience, that psychedelics like mushrooms could also fast forward somebody's healing journey just as much, what psychotherapy does in, what amount of time and everything. Oh man, this has been so good. Like that like I've had I interview a lot of guests, and like, this is good. Like, I feel like right now I just need to, like, whatever you want to share, you just go ahead. I'm just gonna take a couple of deep breaths right now, because like, I just feel really good right now. I'm glad that I reached out to you, first of all, because like, it's like, that was good. Like, you know a lot about this stuff, which is really good. And also, like, I have friends in my inner circle and my network that are deep doing this type of work that you're doing, but I never got into these conversations as much as I did with you. And to pick your brain, I guess it's because we're on the podcast and that's my job. But it was definitely good. So just to like ask a simple question here, psychedelics, when it comes to trauma, okay? When it comes to childhood trauma, actually, first of all, you do a lot of one-on-one. So how often is it that when you're working with somebody, you end up like you're working with somebody where they're using this to heal their childhood trauma? Like, what kind of scenarios most of the times your one-on-ones are coming to with? Are they coming with like, I want to find my purpose in life, or like, I want to heal this childhood trauma, or I have a lot of stuck energy in my body, I don't know how to release it? Like, tell me a little, what is it, the type of problems and issues people are coming to you that they want to solve with psychedelics?
Yeah, I think simply put, it's all the same thing. You know, it's all trauma. And my job, I think, is really to help people heal the trauma themselves without a lifetime prescription to big pharma. You know, because there is this natural pharmacy available to us, and all the pharmacy-based drugs are based off of a lot of plant, frog, and fungi medicines.
Yeah.
So why not just skip through all the bullshit and work with the whole? Because when you start taking apart a whole plant or a whole frog or a whole mushroom, you're missing a part of the whole picture. And I think that's where a lot of the side effects come in and things like that. So when you're working with the whole, you end up becoming more complete, which I think is the goal. Is that a lot of people, when they're coming to me, it's that it was something that comes up all the time. Oh, there's a piece of the picture missing. I've got this far, but there's still something missing. And you know, sometimes it's that people are coming to me because of trauma from the military, or trauma from their past, or trauma from drugs that they've been on and just going through the system in that way. Sometimes it's trauma from oppression, or trauma because maybe they were in a type of dissolution around a relationship or something like that, and the glass shatters and the truth comes out, and you know, that can be really traumatizing for people. So trauma's definitely the common denominator, and I think we all go through types of trauma and oppression in our life, no matter what. You know, if you bleed red, chances are, you know, there's some trauma in there somewhere, and this could be a great tool. It doesn't mean that mushrooms are for everybody, but you know what? There are 144 psychedelic mushrooms that grow all the way around the world, and even more that are medicinal. There's actually less that will kill you. So, you know, there's fear tactics around here. There's also, you know, out of the, I can't even remember off the top of my head how many psychoactive plants, but I do have the book on psychoactive plants, and I'll tell you that it is an encyclopedia about this big. There's a lot of them. And guess how many there are in herbology and growing out in your backyard and growing in your neighbor's garden or your garden. There's a lot of medicine out there that's natural. And then we get into the animals and the frogs and the fish. And, you know, there's a lot of psychedelics, but there's also a lot of medicinals out there and I think what it is that we're all made out of a different set of chemicals, and we need different medicines depending on who we are. And again, this is a bio-individual process. We need to figure out what makes us tick. And you know, while I'm not saying mushrooms are for everybody, I can guarantee you that there is a plant, frog, or fungus out there that will help you, no matter who you are. And if trauma is something that you're working through, then, you know, contact me or contact Mohammed, or, you know, just do a Google search and start seeing what comes up for you.
I love that. One last question. And I have, you know, read a lot about this, and I heard a lot of stories as well, how, you know, microdosing has helped people get over their addiction of drinking and, you know, alcohol, and like, of course, even yourself from the beginning. Actually, it was something that helped you as well. Why do you think, microdosing, for example, and I say just microdosing because it seems like the popular thing a lot of people are doing these days. Why do you think it helps people get over their addiction? Let's say you have a drinking problem, you smoke a lot of weed, you smoke cigarettes, and you start to microdose for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, and you naturally just give up this addiction. Where prior to this, it was the hardest thing to ever. You tried quitting smoking for years and it didn't work. You tried quit drinking for years and it didn't work. But yet you start to microdose, and within a couple of weeks or a couple of months, it could even be shorter for some people, you just naturally you know what, I don't need that in my life anymore. And you stop this crazy addiction that was so hard. So why do you think that happens?
Yeah, it's called crowding out, I think. It's the crowding out factor. One of my teachers in nutrition school used that. He actually coined the term, and being a health leader in the field. And he was talking about when people are eating things like sugar. He was very much into sugar causes the blues. And so he wanted to get everybody off of sugar. Mm-hmm. And so he coined this term that you want to crowd out sugar with healthier alternatives like root vegetables that taste very sweet. And I think that that's really what it is, because when we look at something like alcohol, and, I'm going to use herbology as an example. If you're making a tincture, you're putting a bunch of herbs into a glass and you're pouring a very strong alcohol over top. And what it does is it pulls the essence out of the plant. Now, for a tincture, that's great because you get a really potent medicine out of it. But when we're doing this with alcohol, it's alcohol, when it's boiled down, all that's left is sugar. This is a side note. But there's really nothing else there. So it's pulling the essence out of the human, but not replacing it with anything. So when we're talking about, essentially it's changing the person by taking out the goodness. And, this was called spirits. Traditionally, alcohol was, and a lot of people do believe that it's inviting in more demonic spirits. And, that is research. Certain people, if it interests you, you can do. I found it quite fascinating because once there's an open space, something needs to fill that. And oftentimes it's very bad habits that are associated, like eating junk food or pizza at 3:00 in the morning, or junk television, or fights, or, just anger, in general comes up a lot with alcohol. And alcoholics, even in recovery for years, the anger stays. Yeah. And when we're crowding out with something like a microdosing protocol, what are the mushrooms doing? They're adding in all of this goodness. They're coming to you in a whole form, bringing you connection, showing you what love is, helping you understand the world, helping you understand yourself, connecting you to nature, like the mycelium. It's everywhere underneath the ground. You're likely your house is built upon it. You're built upon it. And so this mycelium is a network underneath the ground, and it very much looks like our brain. You can call that like part of the doctrine of signatures. And I like to think about it like the collective conscious. So when we're consuming that, it's helping our brain connect with the collective conscious. And so that gives us the feeling of connection, which essentially is one of the reasons why people drink. It starts out for social reason. A lot of the time I get that people who say, alcohol's not an issue for me. I'm just a social drinker. Okay, well, how much do you drink? Oh, I drink every weekend. Okay. Okay, every weekend, or, because this is an issue. Let's start finding some alternatives here, So yeah, that's my take on that. I think it works because it crowds out the negative habits and replaces it with what we really want, which is love.
Yes, I love that. That was a great answer. Thank you so much, Ashley. That was the last question. I feel like I could go on. I have a whole bunch of other questions, but we can maybe do another episode down the line. This was a great episode. I'm sure everyone listening to this are going to get a lot of information. Some of them listeners might not have even considered psychedelics, might have had not a good just image around them, and I'm sure they're going to get curious. They're going to look into it more, And this was a beautiful episode. And you can go back to the last 96 episodes. It's not that often I say this was a beautiful episode. This was really good. Please let everybody know where they can find you. I'm going to enter your details and everything in the details section of the podcast so they can connect with you, reach out to you, follow you, all that good stuff.
Yeah. And thank you so much for having me. This was such a blessing. I'm so glad we had the opportunity to connect and meet and spend this time together. If for anybody out there, thank you for showing up. And to contact me, you can go to elementalgrowth.org. And I'm also very active on Instagram. Pretty much anything is elemental growth. But I mainly stick to more of the decentralized platforms. So you won't see me on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter. They already got rid of me. But Instagram, I'm still there. Yeah. So you can find me there. And you can email me or find out what I'm up to at elementalgrowth.org. There's also tons of resources there. You can find my books, articles that I've written, tons of free stuff like getting into our communities and such things there. So thank you so much. And I look forward to connecting with you more and your audience too.
Awesome. Yes. I will definitely put all those things in the details section of the podcast for everybody to connect with Ashley. And as we finish off this podcast episode, my intentions are for you to truly take this information in. My intentions are for you to discover how powerful psychedelics can be, how powerful microdosing can be, and not to only listen to this episode for entertainment purposes, but truly take some information from this and start to implement it in your day-to-day life. Because I truly believe it is life-changing information. And until next time, stay an aware alpha.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
BMA Hydroponics has everything you need to succeed. Visit our hydroponics superstore at 404 Maitland Drive in Belleville, and we'll show you how to grow your own quality cannabis for pennies per gram. We're open Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Thursdays and Fridays from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Call 613-967-9888. BMA Hydroponics. It's worth the drive. The only way to go.
At Legacy 420, we believe in being different.
Experience the difference of quality control.
Our labs provide tested formulations for all of our products.
Experience the difference in trust.
Our customers can trust that we are following up-to-date COVID precautions for their safety.
Experience the difference in accessibility.
We're open 7 days a week. Please visit our website, legacy420.com, or contact us for curbside pickup as well as nationwide mail order shipping.
Legacy 420 values overall wellness.
Come and experience the difference of Legacy 420.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.